Did everybody say yes?
Yes, we are ready.
Approved. Yep.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Revel Coach Plus with your hosts, Allison Nissen and Marcy Stout. We are the founders of Revel Coach. We have a platform where we talk to people, we talk to our friends, we talk to all sorts of interesting individuals who are helping move the needle for other companies, other businesses, and for themselves so that they can live their best lives and help everyone else do it at the same time. So again, from Allison and Marcy, we are so excited today because we are going to welcome Lex Hultquist, who is the CEO and founder, as well as a passionate entrepreneur. He's a marketing technology specialist and the founder of HQdigital. And in 2014, he embarked on a journey to systematically and predictably grow revenue and help others do the same thing through sales optimization, technology adoption. I guess it's technology adoption. If I read properly, I can get there. But he is a very well-known person, and his big favorite platform that he works for is HubSpot. So Lex, welcome so much to Revel Coach Plus.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Allison. Hi, Marcy. Good to see you both again.
I guess what we should have said was that Lex is also a Denison alum. Many of the people that we have featured on our show have been from Denison. So we are so excited that we got to meet another alum at our Denison remix this past year.
Yeah, so Lex, I remember meeting you. We go back to Denison for this entrepreneurial summit, and it's great because you're on a campus that you spend 4 years on learning. And then as adults, we kind of sprint as much as we can. We're juggling all these things. And it's sometimes hard to take the time for that growth mindset, but you put yourself in the microcosm of where you were when you were a teenager, growing and learning. And it's so fun because you just learn from all these different people. And I remember, Lex, when we first met and you were sharing the work that you do with your wife and the marketing and HubSpot, and Allison were like, he needs to be on our show because we've got a lot more questions.
I love it. I do. It was an awesome event. I feel like exactly what you said, being on campus just has like different energy. You're like out, take off your work hat and you're like in this like different mindset, and you've got students, milling about and, up to, all the things that they're, taking adventures on today. It was a really cool event. And thank you again. Yeah. For having me on today.
Well, we'd love to start off with just, share a little bit about your journey of how you got to where you are with a marketing company and getting into this space. Catch us up to from Denison to now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated from Denison in 2009. I was an economics major. I had no idea, where that was going to take me as far as a career went. And I did not have a job lined up when I graduated, and I ended up actually moving across town to Ohio Wesleyan and knew some track runners there, and was looking for a place to bum up for the summer. So I ended up living there, working some odd jobs, and eventually got a offer at a marketing agency in Toledo, where I had done an internship. They didn't have anything right when I graduated, but by that fall had reached out, and I started as a research analyst, so living in Excel sheets, and it felt like my economics degree had paid off. And like, here I was like doing what I had gone to school to learn. But very quickly found myself like not interested in only doing spreadsheets, and learning very quickly everything that the marketing world had to offer. At one point I put up my hand and said I would take on helping maintain our website. And so I became like a self-taught web developer, and had all kinds of different opportunities and exposure at that first agency where I worked. And that kind of, at some point I realized like I wasn't going to be able to just kind of do this for someone else the whole time. And I jumped from there and landed at my first startup called MedNav. And we raised some money and had a little platform where we would try and help people find doctor's appointments. Like if you think through the idea of like, I'm, in college student, new city, new town, I need a dentist, I need this kind of doctor, but my schedule is very limited. It was like 2 o'clock, I need an appointment, who's available type of vision. So we got to go to some pitch competitions and do some things like that, but ultimately, that flared out, and I found myself doing freelance website projects, and reconnected with one of my former coworkers who was then at an agency in Philadelphia. So I ended up going there, and they were HubSpot's first diamond partner agency. And so I had no idea what HubSpot was. I got introduced to this amazing technology that I've now built a current career around. And I also met my wife and business partner, Megan, there. So it turned out to be a great business and life decision for me to go to that agency. But eventually, from there, learned the system HubSpot, and Megan and I, after some other quick stops, spun out on our own and launched HQdigital in its current form, which is a HubSpot agency partner, where we help companies of all sizes grow with their marketing and sales automation tools. If anyone is not familiar, HubSpot is a CRM at its base, so you can organize all your customers, all your contacts, all your leads, and you store all your information about them. And then they have all kinds of tools to say, hey, we're going to send these people emails. We're going to target these people on social media. We're going to let our salespeople know, who's talking to them. And as a small company or a growing company, there's just, so much you can do with it. But yeah, today I find myself leading a small team, and we have a very flexible work and life requirement of them that says, go and enjoy other things besides just our work environment. And that's enabled me to pursue other things. I'm a parent association president at my daughter's school, and I love going over there and leading groups in the forest and getting to hang out in the classroom. And I feel like I've unlocked a whole new side of my brain, understanding like what fourth graders are learning today versus like what I learned. But yeah, that's probably like the very quick version of how I got to today.
Well, that's awesome. HubSpot is at its base, you said, a customer management system.
Yep, it is.
And so when you marry that with the marketing, it's that you're targeting people that you have already identified as potential clients, customers, or ones that you already have. Is that correct?
It can be, but it's also great for those, unknown prospects. So if, anyone today who's, not yet using HubSpot can start for free. So the CRM component is free. They have a tracking code you can add to your WordPress site or your existing website. And it's going to start, giving you the same kind of analytics of, what pages are people interested in and how much time do they spend on the page. But what's also going to happen is if they fill out a form, we're going to cookie them. And we're going to know, okay, Marcy came and looked at, this page, and then she, looked at this blog, and then she filled out this form. And next time she comes back to the site, we see what she does, again. And Allison was interested in this other product or this other service that we have. And, based on that, the idea is I could create a very customized and a very personalized journey for you to say, I'm going to send you an email and it's going to say, hey, Marcy, I know you were, perhaps solving this challenge. And here's another piece of information that's going to help you on that journey to solving, challenge X. And Allison, you're on a similar path, but you're solving a different challenge, so I'm going to have a slightly different message for you. HubSpot, is the database underneath is storing all that information for you in real time. And what we do as marketers is we help people, at an individual level, just craft, okay, I don't have time to reach out to, all these people. I want this, when someone does this, send this message. And at a, big corporation level, we're testing messages all the time. So, we're taking 500 people get this message and 500 people get this message. And we find out, which one resonates better based on they buy more or they want a demo faster or, any of those key indicators. But it really is fun, to scale that to, a company that has, 35 salespeople who are all using HubSpot versus a single person who says, help me save time in my day. I can only do so much.
Right. So we had shared with you before the show, what we find most successful in these conversations is if we just kind of walk in our audience's shoes and ask all the questions that we think they're asking. So we have two different audiences that might use HubSpot. Those that are maybe the solopreneur, the small team, the DIYers that are like less than $1 million in revenue. Yep. So they've got, hypothetically speaking, Wix, which is what we have.
Yep.
They've got Wix, who does give us market analytics, like where people are going. I don't think it does it by person and things like that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you would buy like a HubSpot and you connect it to your Wix. And then HubSpot just has more advanced technology to then be able to segment your people automatically, or do I need to add tags? You know what I mean?
You'll have to do a little bit of that work yourself. And I would say, as like at a basic level, HubSpot can be thought of as like, almost like your Wix and your MailChimp combined. So we're going to take, the sign up forms for like your newsletter that you have from MailChimp, those already are in HubSpot. And the emails that you send from your MailChimp, those are already in HubSpot. And, on HubSpot's free version, you can build landing pages, so you could, build your Wix website today on HubSpot, or you could take the HubSpot code and put it there. The anonymous visitors, it's going to track them the same. The analytics you see in Wix are probably the same, page views and time on the site. And did they come from Google or did they come from Facebook? I think all of that's going to be pretty similar. Where HubSpot gives you, more of that information is once someone has identified themselves, like from a form fill, or if I send you an email and you click the link in the email to come to my website, and I've, I can now connect those dots and say, this visitor is Marcy or this visitor is Allison. That's where HubSpot's going to let me not just track, okay, this was the total visits to this page, but if I go look at your journey, I can say you were on this page, or I can say, I want to build a list and I want to take, of my 500 contacts, all the people who have been to the site in the last 30 days, or all the people who have not been to the site in the last 30 days. And I'm going to send them an email, or all the people who have not yet seen my new website. I'm going to send them an email because I know they haven't, gotten to see everything that we launched in our new iteration of our site. Those become, the triggers, or like that's, I guess, like putting that data in the same place that you're building your website. The all-in-one nature of HubSpot is one of the reasons we love it. From an ease of use standpoint, it's very it's got a drag and drop editor, much like Wix, much like WordPress, much like MailChimp. It's not better than that, in that perspective, but it's very much equivalent. There's not, I guess, what I'd come to expect from any of those tools is pretty standard across the board.
Okay, so staying in her shoes or his shoes, when is it a good time to look at HubSpot? Is it one where you're like, okay, you're just kind of starting, so instead of starting with the kind of the traditional ones like a Wix and things like that, just build everything at HubSpot? Or is it something like once you're at this level of business and you really want to track your traffic flow on your website and things like that, so it's probably better to wait until you have some iterations? Is there
I would say day one, and I'm going to use my daughter as an example. Over the summer, she decided, I have a cousin who she and her mom have all tracked every single book they've ever read in their life. So they've written down like the book and the author and the date they finished. And my daughter, as we're trying to amp up her love of reading, kind of latched onto that idea. And we talked about, well, we could make it into a website. And she's immediately viewed it as like, well, I'm launching a business. So I'm like, yep, you're launching a business. Let's do it. Little entrepreneur, like, look at you go. So we went on to HubSpot and we got the domain bookworms with a Z.club, because bookworms.com, I think, was like thousands of dollars, and bookworms with a Z.club was only like $1.99 or something. So we bought the domain, and by the end of the afternoon, she had made a little web page where she'd typed everything out. We had a form at the bottom, and it was all just on HubSpot, and so then from there, her idea is she's going to send an email to her Nana and her grandpa, and they can sign up. And to start, we just had a spreadsheet. And so when you sign up, you get access to the spreadsheet and you put your own books in. And her long-term goal is like, well, she could build that into an app and she can do all these other things. And who knows when we'll return to it. She's on to a million other ideas at this point. But, I would say when you're starting out a business, whether that's, because you're going to reach out to people and want to track those conversations, or because you want to put, one page site up where you can point people and they can, read about you or fill out a form and, wait for you to grow from there. I feel like I would start with HubSpot day one. And it's easy for me to say because I'm familiar with it, but it's just, it's just as powerful from day one, I feel like, as it will be if you move there in year 3. but you just don't have that, you've been using it all along. You're not like picking up and trying to do this big adoption. The ease of use and I guess like the user-friendly tools is one of their big selling points. So I guess not even selling points, but pitch points, because like I said, the basic tools are free when you get started.
All right. So is it in a replace? Does it have its own website so it replaces a Wix, or do they work in conjunction?
It can. And so there's a free CMS and then there's a paid CMS. The free one has the little HubSpot logo in the bottom and doesn't have, some of the fancy content features.
Right.
And then, there's a basic starter level, and I'm not going to get all the, prices right, but, $25 a month. And then there's, a few $100s a month, and there's the $1,200 a month version. And unless you have multiple domains and thousands of, web traffic visitors a day, you don't have to look at those. You're always going to be in that competitive Wix type pricing. And again, the ease
does
of
it
use
have the
of,
same functionality as a website? Meaning like our website has multiple pages, multiple links, you can do all that. That's cool. I didn't know that.
You can build a menu, you can build some page templates. Yep. Everything like that. Yeah.
Very nice. I know that I've gone through one of the HubSpot academies, and their training is phenomenal. And you don't even have to use their training to benefit. I mean, you don't have to use their product to benefit from the training.
Yeah.
That was what was really cool to me.
I would agree. Their academy is very cool. They cover a lot that's almost like philosophical or like marketing approach, taking like an inbound approach or understanding the flywheel. There's like terms that they do a lot of learning around, but you're absolutely right. They do great courses on positioning yourself, for buyers, versus for, talking to internal people. And HubSpot's whole background was around the inbound methodology of buyer behavior today has changed, and people aren't, they're a lot farther down that path of like making a purchase decision by the time they ever pick up the phone and talk to someone. And so how do you, as a company or, a small, entrepreneur trying to get your name out there, how do you get in front of people earlier in that cycle? And the idea behind inbound is, you're putting yourself in their shoes, you're solving problems or thinking about problems that are important to them, and you're creating content that helps them solve those problems so that they find you online. Because the idea that, I'm going to make a radio spot, and the minute that you're driving down the highway and hear my radio spot is the minute that you're trying to solve your problem is like very unlikely. And so, just from that standpoint, inbound made a lot of sense to a lot of people to just say, there's a better way to do this. And, when you make a TV spot or, like that, you pay one time, and anyone who missed it, they miss it, and you can try to push it out there more. But this inbound content, that if you develop original content, as an author, I'm sure you can appreciate that, there's a value that it brings, and it's evergreen. It's always there. It's always searchable. It's always providing value. It's always providing, like brand affirmation. When people come and see you, it's like, they have a very robust blog and content. It's, that credibility can't be understated, whether you're a brand people know or someone that people are just discovering.
Right. I'm going to jump in because I love what you just said. First of all, brand affirmation, love that terminology. I'm stealing it. I don't know if it's somebody else's, but
I don't think so.
But the idea, okay, so I like to do blogs, and I know you and I have had conversations about blogs, and blogs really do provide that evergreen content, and they provide that brand affirmation, which is super. But if somebody is like really new to all of this, what is the best thing to do to start out?
That's hard. I don't know. I guess I want to know more about them. Like, what are they selling? Who's their audience? 'Cause I think it's going to be a mix of like, tell everyone is like always step one, because you don't, you can't possibly anticipate all the challenges they're facing and who they know and what they're going to hear. But it feels like every time I talk to someone, it's like within a day or two, I'm thinking of like an application of what they do, or, I hear something else that someone else say. It's like one of those things, like people are automatically making those connections. And so feel like, people are like, oh, I don't want to bother them, or, oh, people will just see it. It's like, no, pick up the phone, tell your buddies, like tell your girlfriends, like, I'm doing this. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's how you can help support me. I feel like, when we started to do that ourselves, Marcy, you're like, I know people who use HubSpot big and small. And it's like, if you don't know I do HubSpot, like, how would you help connect those dots, So that I feel like, being willing to talk about, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, or this is what I'm, this new company I'm going to launch is going to be doing, is really step one. And then from a content standpoint, I guess it really is that, like, I guess another thing with the inbound methodology, or maybe this is more just Megan and my background and training, is like, we try to, like, give away our knowledge. Like, there's no world where, you've become an expert and you've, built a career on something where, I'm going to say something in a conversation or give away, something on a case study that's going to let everyone have the secret. It's like, there is no secret. The secret is that, like, you've developed years of, an expertise, and you have, like, business acumen there. It doesn't just come overnight. And so don't be afraid, I guess, to, like, give it away. When it comes to, like, the writing, I feel like we are always looking for, like, how do we teach someone to do this themselves? And that tends to beget, like, you look like the thought leader, you're solving their problem. They're going to come to you to solve the next problem. It's not going to be like, well, they solved it, and now I don't have to ever use them again. It feels like that's what we do with our, I make YouTube videos to help people solve problems in HubSpot. And when I hear, like, enough people having a problem, that's a good video for me to make. And it tends to lead to, like, hey, I know you can do this for me. That's why I want to come to you. That's the problems that we're solving for people. When we help clients develop their content, we try to do the same thing, where it's like, well, the last 5 great customers you got, what were they trying to do before they talked to you? And can you give them that answer earlier in the funnel? Because what people find out is, if you give away that answer, people come back for, like, more good answers. They're not like, great, we got it, or like, run off with your expertise.
Yeah, we always say, like, if you're really clear on what problems you solve for your customer, and then how specifically you solve those problems, and then how you both have, you do it better than the competition, or you do it just in general, like how you drive your results. If you're really clear on those things, you're going to resonate with the right audience. But truth be told, if you actually tell them how you solve the problem, it's either one or two things. You're going to get, like, some sort of testimonial and be like, oh, I'm so glad you did this. Thank you so much. And that's like a goodwill thing. Or you get somebody like, that's awesome. You clearly know what you're doing, and I have no interest in doing that. Especially
Right.
like something like technical, like HubSpot.
Yep.
So do you find, like, when you're working with clients, how much are you kind of like a messaging consultant versus a technician in terms of, like, bringing their message to life?
Very much a mix. That's kind of like the two sides of our business. And I guess I personally sit much more on the technical side. Like, how do we bring in your data to HubSpot? How do we organize your data? How do we make sure the right people are getting the right message? And on the other side, Megan and team do more, what is that right message? And, as opposed to the delivery mechanism of it. But there's definitely a good mix. And I do get going on, there was that StrengthsFinder exercise that we got to do at Remix. And I've done it, long ago, but ideation is my number 2 strength there. So I feel like I jump right in on the brainstorms of things, where it's like, we're trying to come up with content, and like, I love doing the content brainstorms, even though I'm not really as attached to that side of our business.
That's awesome. And I love, like, the fact that you guys can partner on those two things, because what I've learned today through this conversation, is how you can kind of create triggers of email campaigns depending on website traffic. So it can get really narrow. So you have somebody that knows the message and says that this avatar, this type of client goes this way on your website. Yep. They would kind of say, Lex, can you make sure this happens? Like, this technology part happens. And that's such a good way of, because often we don't have both sides of that brain.
Right. Yes. And what you described is, like, exactly what we kind of spend time coming up with is, okay, if they did this, what do we think, they might be doing next? And how do we, make that easier, faster, more efficient? And yeah, exactly what you said, of you've been on the website, we can trigger this email. HubSpot's other tools, as you get into like the paid tools, it's like, oh, we can have a chat bot, and people who are, part of your, if they're, I'll use Revel coaches example, if they're part of your coaching team already, they can access that chat, and if you're not, the chat doesn't show up, and you can, kind of create those different levels and different environments for different audiences. Same thing with like a pop-up form, it's like a brand new person on the site sees the pop-up form and everybody else doesn't see the pop-up form. When you start to like customize that just a little bit, we see like big payoff or big returns on, well, you didn't bother everybody, you only bothered the right people kind of thing. We feel like as marketers, our job all the time is like interrupt people, and like, how do we do that a little less obnoxiously and a little bit more like with good intentions?
Yeah, well, that's really great. When we first started, this is probably, we've been on the road for doing this for like 5 years, but I think like 3 years ago, that word unsubscribe button, it kind of freaked me out because I didn't want anybody unsubscribing from me, but I'm an unsubscriber because I'm like, I can fetch information when I need to get that news or I need to get that. So I always unsubscribe. So then I'm worried about sending messages. So Allison and I've always debated this, what's the right balance of messaging, especially because we have multiple audiences. We have authors, we have corporations, we have women who are exploring their next opportunity. So what I'm learning from this is how you really can custom their experience in your messaging, because when you do work, when your company gets big enough, you work with different, you solve different problems with different demographics. So that type of automation is so cool.
Yeah. And I feel like what you just described, is like a perfect application of like, okay, I'm, somebody who's considering like launching my solo career, and, you can tell from the content they're reading, they might get on a very different email cadence than someone who is already a corporate executive and, has a different lifestyle today. I feel like, there's all kinds of, beyond just what you're saying to them, where you're saying it, are these messages going to pop up in their LinkedIn, and how often versus, we're going to hit them with emails. There's a, a whole world that, that opens up in terms of how do we make sure this message is efficient, or how do we make sure this message resonates correctly? Yeah.
Lex, your company is HQdigital.
Yes.
And how do people get in touch with you? They just go to HQdigital.com?
It's HQ-digital. That's another one like we couldn't quite track down the without the hyphen, and it bugs me all the time. But we're HQ-digital.com. And yes, that is our little website there. I have a YouTube channel, which is just /Lex Hultquist, where we put HubSpot videos there. If you're starting out using HubSpot or already using HubSpot, you can definitely watch there as well. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you both.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I definitely love the conversation because I'm always fascinated about how technology keeps evolving, and they're really trying to make it simpler. So there's so many people like Allison and me that aren't that technical, but you can use, technology to your advantage. And too often I feel like the people, that we speak to that are in their entrepreneurial journey, they're not, even the big companies, they're not making the most of their technology to have it really, serve them as well as they could. So I appreciate this conversation, the insight.
Definitely. I would say if your HubSpot simplifies your tech stack, like it's hard today, even as like a small company, it's like, we've got Zoom and we've got Harvest for time tracking and we've got Lucid Chart, and we just like, it feels like it explodes. But HubSpot, does a pretty good job of being that one stop for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and then when we need somebody to actually be able to do it for us, we know who to call.
Yes, please. We'd be happy to help anytime.
Well, thanks so much, Lex, for being on the show. And for everyone that joined us today, we appreciate your time. We hope you join us at another Revel Coach Plus conversation.
Thank you.
Bye.